All right, we're back, guys. We had some technical issues, but we're gonna piece this one together. So your blood was boiling.
Live in Bali.
Yeah, let's actually go to a studio.
Mm.
I think it's better to just address this because if someone listens to the podcast and I pieced it together, they're gonna be like, "That seems a little disjointed." So we had some technical issues. The internet went down, but we are back.
We are back, baby.
We're back again. We're back for the second time. So yeah, so your blood was boiling. That's kind of where we left off.
Yep. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to record a TikTok right now. Like I need to tear her down. Like I need to expose her. Like that's literally the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I rung Courtney, one of my friends who I was there in Cancun with, and she was like, oh my God, babe, this is bad. And I'm like, I know.
Just feeding into it.
Yeah. And she was like, she literally did a deep dive into her and was like, oh my God, Brooke, you know what it was? Like I shared one of her stories because she speaks about remote closing. She's in the same kind of world. No one's ever heard of her.
we won't name her, right?
No, I'm not naming her. I'm just saying.
No, but I'm just saying, like we won't name her. But I don't think
you can find her.
You can find her, right? And like this isn't like, oh, she used my idea and now she's like launching something similar, because like if someone does that, like kudos to them.
Yeah,
right?
awesome.
Like this is literally like I cannot explain. It is the exact same thing to the point where like even the photo, like the poses.
Yeah.
In the photos.
Yeah,
the exact
telephone,
same.
the old telephone. Literally.
It's literally like she got you up on the thing and was like, hey, I need you to brand everything exactly the same as this, and I need to do a photo shoot where I'm literally wearing like the exact same fucking socks.
Yeah.
Like it's it's laughable.
What's like super disappointing is like she has, you know, as an influencer, you have a code of conduct, you have a duty of care, I believe. Like if you are speaking to a large amount of people, like you need to do the right thing.
Yep.
And what was the most disappointing is that she saw me as a little fish and that wouldn't give a shit. But she picked the wrong person. She really freaking did, because that's made me so incredibly angry. And just like, you know, my logo, my name has meaning to it. Like the brand shoot, we spent hours brainstorming what that was going to look like and what I wanted what did I want people to see when they saw those photos. Like it was all meticulously crafted and built, and she's just come in and taken that and gone, this is my great idea. Yeah. And like, there's nothing out there like this. And it's just all fake. And that's the opposite of what I literally want women to feel. You know, like this is all about being authentic and building a genuine connection. And she's just come out there and grabbed everything of mine and shown it to a larger audience. And that's just really, really upset me.
And that's the thing, right? Like, you know, your actions always speak so much louder than no one can hear the words you say because the actions speak so loudly, right? And like, you know, that's the thing that Hormozy speaks about is like when your competition are copying you, that's a good thing. Like you're doing something right. It's when no one's copying you that you're like, shit, I might be off here.
Yeah.
So,
and that was fine. Like I actually went out to the community that I'm part of and I shared that, and I had a lot of good advice, and someone actually posted like a Facebook post about like how you get butthurt when your IP is stolen, and like how you should actually, and like I was kind of like, whoa, this has been completely taken out of context. I'm not angry that she's doing what I'm doing. I think that's great. We need more women closers. Like do it, but be original. Choose your own name, do your own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not like, because that's the thing, like because there's no original ideas, right? So like using someone as inspiration, like of course, like go for it. Like kudos to you. Like there's no reason why you can't collaborate and work together. But like, yeah, it's just the way it was done. It's literally, I cannot explain how similar it is. Like I look at it and I'm like, it's she sells. Like it's yours. It's like it even looks like, besides the hair color, like like the poses, everything. It's so similar.
Even her story, like I was taught by so many men, and it was so masculine. Like it literally word for word, part of like my copy is her story. Yeah. So it's just so fake. That is what is really disappointing, is that like it's actually casting a shadow over this world, and like the exact opposite than what I'm trying to achieve with these women.
Doesn't really, like
it's like
it's not congruent.
I always say, I always say to my girls, there's plenty of pieces of the pie. Everyone can get to the top. And so like to see that kind of behavior happening to like such a large audience, it's just really disappointing. Like
yeah. But I mean, you can look at that in reverse, right? Like, she's copying you, but the pie is big. So like, you know, you just keep doing your thing, and it doesn't matter. Like no one can take it from you. But yeah, there's goods and bads to everything.
I
Right?
haven't even spoken about this yet because like there's things that are happening in the background. But you know, I don't have, there's not one part of me who was being genuine when I said no just then. I understand that the pie is plenty big. There's just right ways to do things, you know, like she can be successful. I can be successful. Yeah. We can both have very, very similar businesses. You guys could have
collaborated, done a thing together. That would have been amazing. Like that's gone.
No, I will never associate
joint venture would have been nice, but yeah.
Nah,
anyway, that's gone.
We got very different vibes. Like, I'm more empowering. She's more like blunt and masculine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wicked. All right. So that's two pretty big components of what's been going on for you. What's the other little treat you got going on at the moment?
Treat?
This thing.
Oh, yeah. So after the ClickFunnels event, I just felt very inspired, very motivated, very like, I just want everything, you know? I just want to get...
Not enough time in the day to do
Yes,
things.
correct. Yeah. And so I thought, how can I get my girls to level up? Because like one thing that I noticed from being at ClickFunnels is like every single business owner that has a sales team.
Okay, this is interesting. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every single business owner that had a sales team were like so fed up, so like done with having to manage their emotions. And they were literally to the point where they were like, fuck them. Like,
yeah.
You know, I was privy to seeing some text messages to like the closing team. And like, it's just so funny, you know. They're speaking to their business owners like they would a prospect. Like, are you open to some feedback? And like the business owners are just so fed up that they're like, no, like I'm not. Stop. No, like I'm not open to feedback.
Yeah.
Because they're so frustrated. Like imagine just for a second, everybody that's listening, imagine spending thousands upon thousands of dollars per week to put a lead in front of someone to hear them pitching at 7 minutes or like just not giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is why you have a mid management point, like someone like a sales manager, or like someone needs to be that filter because like if there's a direct line of contact between the closer and business, that's not going to go down well. But also like, kudos to you know, being a sales manager. That's a whole nother ballgame. I don't think I'd have the you know the patience and whatever it takes to do that.
It's just like people just don't have an understanding. There's no real direct correlation between a closer and a business owner. Like a closer kind of just rocks up, doesn't have to see the back end of what it actually takes, the cost of acquisition, like the process that this lead goes through to get to them.
Can we just reframe this? This is an average closer.
Correct.
Let's reframe that.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between an average closer that is just like a headhunter and someone that is a professional.
Correct. This isn't my she sells girls at all.
Yeah.
We teach them to be
exactly.
a sales
this isn't
professional.
how we're training people is because like how I like to frame it for a actual sales professional is you are a business. You are a business.
Correct.
Like these are your leads that are given to you, but you are your own business. Like you generate your own opportunity. You think with an entrepreneurial mindset of like how you can like create opportunity from old leads and you're active and you're working leads. Like that's the thing. Like, so yeah, but unfortunately what the business is kind of, the industry is like riddled with is like lazy people. It's lazy sales reps. They're like, and fuck, I fall into that trap. I literally fall into that trap.
Yeah, we all do though. And that's fine. But it's recognized, it's a self-awareness that a lot of average closers lack.
Yeah.
And then when they get called out, their ego just is so hurt. They start blaming the leads. They start making up all these stories about like how so-and-so is getting favored and like, it's just like this never-ending cycle of having to manage their emotions. Cause you know, it is a roller coaster of emotions. You have days where you feel amazing, days where you feel shit. But unfortunately for the business owner, you got to think like they're having that across every department.
Yeah.
So like the last thing they want to do is deal with that shit.
Yeah.
You know, so like I honestly, like these are multimillionaires that I was talking to who were just like so done with their sales teams. And there's a huge issue.
Sounds like there's a bit of a gap.
Yeah.
Bit of a gap for some actual well-trained closers.
Exactly. Income she sells. You want a sales professional?
She sells. Yeah.
Well, there's that whole
Producing
concept.
Sales professionals.
Yeah. There's that whole concept, right? Where it's like, you know, you're just an inbound closer. You're not actually a sales professional, you know? And that's not what I teach in.
I hate that word. I heard one of my setters today be like, "Oh, I'm just a setter."
I know, that's
I was
sad.
like, "How dare you?"
Yeah.
Like, you are not just a setter.
Mm.
I had to reframe him really well on that.
Yep.
But like, yeah, anyway. Continue.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is like, people are like, you know, there's a difference between an inbound closer, someone who just rocks up, takes calls, that's it, clocks off, done, and a sales professional.
Sales pro.
And the lines are blurred, you know?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, when you bring someone in as an inbound closer and then all of a sudden the expectation changes, that's hard.
Yeah. And once again, right, it's if they don't have a clear vision or a why as to why they're doing it. If they're just showing up and it's like treating it like a job, cool. Like, you know, I mean, you can do that, but you're not going to
do that if you're elite.
Yeah. But also, like, you know, if you have that clear why and vision of where you want to head, then you will do those extra things that will get you there further. So like, I mean, look, there's not good and bad, right? Like there can be businesses that are structured in a way where like they kind of promote that, right? It's like, hey, we just want to give you the best leads like possible. Like, because they feel like they're kind of appeasing to that. Which
but
like
it just doesn't make sense it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't,
like
because,
the
like,
business owner should just do that then.
Exactly,
like what?
Exactly. But they're out there, right? Like, because a good salesperson is hard to find. They really are. Like, you know, it's not a they're not just like floating around everywhere. Okay, plug is a reason as to why we're doing what we're doing.
Can you get me the Pringles, please?
Yeah, I can get you the Pringles.
He put them on the fridge and they're too high up and I can't reach them and I'm hungry.
That's another thing people don't know about you. You're extremely short. People think you're taller than you are.
Yeah, I am really short. I can't reach the Pringles on the top of the fridge.
Yeah. Okay, so just on this topic, right? Because I think this was a question that you said one of your girls, you're not just going to start eating into the microphone.
Yeah.
Don't think that's going to go down well.
Yeah, well, I'll just like do it to the side.
Okay. One of the things that I think one of your girls asked, right, was like, where do you find these like remote roles in sales? Because I mean, like, it's, you know, we talk about it a lot. So like, I guess where do you find them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's not just as simple as being like Seek, although there are some on Seek.
There are. And it's more and more, yeah.
There's lots of Facebook groups that you can join that actually post regularly opportunities, you know. But there's also sales agencies that you can approach. So like She Sells, you know, like we do placement.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Because you got to think of it from a business standpoint. Like you would prefer to go to a company that trains, or like a community at least that has good sales reps that are invested in themselves. Because this is the thing that we run into with like with 7th Level, right? Is because like we have a Facebook community of however many hundreds of thousands of people in it. But like a business will come in and be like, I know that these people are like actually sales professionals because they're honing their craft. So you're going to get a higher quality because a lot of them, and even a lot of them are like, have you invested in yourself? Because if you're just like, if you just think you just come in and just do sales, like, okay, cool. Like you're not going to be any good. Whereas if you are treating it like a professional where you're honing your craft, you're investing, you're getting better, like you go to those communities. So She Sells a perfect example of that, right? Because like businesses will come to you being like, hey, you've got girls in here that are honing their craft daily.
Yep. That are
like
doing role plays.
Please. Like give me more. That's literally what it's like.
Yeah. Right? And like another thing that I just want to touch on is like something that's really like starting to grind my gears a bit is like people coming in, being there for a week and being like, get me a job.
Yeah,
like,
You gotta earn your stripes,
honey. Yeah. Like, come on.
Especially because
you haven't jumped on one role play. You haven't like gone through the launchpad. You haven't posted your assignments. Like, no.
And something they do forget about that, right, is like that you do, you know, they fly under your banner essentially. So like, you know, you've run into situations before, right, where you put people forward, and they've, you know, it's just like it's too early, or the person wasn't vetted properly, whatever it is. So like, it, you know, essentially the where that falls bad, like it makes you look bad. Right?
Yeah, correct. Like I'm just giving out closers that aren't trained properly. Like, no,
it's not setting them up for success.
Yeah,
it's not setting the business owner up for success. Like it's just not a good idea.
Yeah, actually my model is changing slightly. Because I'm realizing there is some big gaps in my closers that have been placed. So eventually you won't be getting placed unless you do the accelerator program.
Yeah.
Because that's going to close the gap.
Yep.
And it's also going to teach more on like being a sales professional, like how to walk into a 10K paying job basically, and not have to, you know, fumble through your first couple of months, which I think is going to be really, you know, appeasing for a lot of my girls who are sort of in that phase where
that's
they're
like,
like,
huge.
Yeah.
Because those first like 6 months will be the determining factor.
Correct.
I think what is the attrition rate is something wild. we have the stat because we use it. I can't remember what it is. I think it's like, it's something absurd, right? Like, like 80% of salespeople like don't make it beyond like a year. Something ridiculous like that. It's like, it's such a high number. So like,
Yeah.
you know, you would hate to see someone like actually be in she sells for like fully being like, I'm doing it. Like, and then you put them in a position they're not ready for. And suddenly a few months go past and they're like, and they're out. Like it's not serving them.
Absolutely right. So yeah, I just want to like, if you're listening to this, just realign those expectations a little bit. You know, like if you wanted to become a teacher or if you wanted to become a nurse, like you go to uni and there's that expectation there for you. You know, it takes 4 years and you're okay with that. Yet you come into like you hear about sales and all of a sudden you are a sales guru and you need to be placed and like you're not willing to actually learn the skill set. It's just like
I use that analogy on my sales calls. I'm like, man, what if you were on like a table? I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast. Like, what if you were like on the operating table, right? You're in your gown. The doctor walks in. He's got his gloves. He slaps him. He walks up. He's like, all right, man, let's see if we can figure this out. Like, let's have a crack. You would be like, what? Like, this is like, I'm not doing it. Like, this is not a professional.
Absolutely. And
so like, and people expect to get paid as much as that, right? So it's like, you know, to think that you can just,
And another thing is like, let's put it on the other side of the coin, which is the business owner. You know, I was shared a really great perspective. You know, we're not a training ground. They're not a training ground. They have a business to run.
Exactly.
Like what? And that just hit me. I was like, wow, that's so true.
Yeah. That was a aha moment.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was a moment that actually now has really, really changed my view on like, no, they're not a training ground. You don't get to go in and practice. You get to go in and dominate. You know, that's what I'm training you to do.
Exactly.
So like, don't come to me and say you want to be placed if you're not. If you've not come to one role play, if you've not gone through the launch pad, if you've not done uncomfortable things within the community, you're not ready.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Exactly. Actually, that's an interesting point. This isn't on the things that we're going to cover today, but just on that, like, when do you think someone is ready, in your opinion? Like, when would you be like, you're ready? Like, whether it's a role play, like, what, like, do you feel like you have a point, or is it just like IQ? It's just like a feel thing.
I because I've actually seen the development and progression of the girls. Like, I do feel like there is a point where you can be competent, right?
Yeah.
Do I feel like there's ever like a moment where you're like, I'm ready? No.
Yeah.
But something that's really, really interesting, which has started to become very, very clear, which is why I'm excited about Accelerator, is my girls don't really understand the concepts.
Yeah.
Right? They get the script, they get the analogies, they get the reframes, they get all of that, but they don't really understand what they're trying to achieve by using them.
Yeah.
Right? So like when I'm listening to some of my girls, they're so good. Like they're really good. I'm like, they sound like me.
Yeah.
But what they're missing is actually completing the thing.
It's the understanding behind
Correct.
it.
Yeah. So they don't have so they'll go one layer in.
Yeah.
And then the prospect will answer and then they're like, okay, I'm done. But they're not done.
Yeah. This is where like literally the term of like you can give someone a fish or you can teach them how to fish. Like how I learn and how I train and coach people is on concepts, because I feel like if you understand the concepts of what you're doing, you have so many tools that you can use to like achieve it.
Totally.
Whereas if you just teach someone to be like, hey, you know, this is the script and this is what you do, it's like, cool, in a perfect situation, it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like how often is that, right? So like, yeah, this is where, you know,
it's also in the teacher, right? Like, you know, it's one thing to say you need to learn the concept. They're like, how? One thing that's really overwhelming when you go to the ClickFunnels event is everyone's like, look at this. This is how I did this is how I did that. But then you leave and you're like, oh, like, what do I do? Where do I start? What do I implement? And so like a teacher is someone who can explain the how. You know, it's like, cool. What you did here was this, like you need to use more of this, or you need to be able to change their perspective. That's all just fancy words. Like how do you change their perspective and why is that important at this part of the call, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The what, how, and the why. Yeah, and that's where I guess like for yourself, having been a teacher is pretty beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's the most important part, is like just understanding why you're doing things and the concepts of it, because then you just don't get stumped. You just can't get, like, that's probably the biggest fear from salespeople is like, oh, but like that moment where they're like stumped, and I hear it all the time with all like new reps. Like the
Mm.
prospect will say something, and immediately, like, especially if you have like an A type, excuse me, you have like an A type personality, they're like kind of like, yeah, I got it. Especially like, we're dealing with sales reps, so they're kind of trying to outsmart you.
Yeah.
But it's like that moment where they get stumbled and frazzled, but that's because you don't understand what you're doing. Like if you have a deep understanding of like, here I am, this is what I'm doing, this is kind of what I need, they just throw anything at you and it's like, yeah, cool, man. Like that's not the question. Like this is kind of what I was asking. And then they're stumped and they're like, oh shit, like I can't really fuck with this guy or girl.
Exactly.
So suddenly
then,
like your authority builds, and then now there's a level of trust because you're not just seen as the script reader. So like, yeah, that is a massive like shift and a level to get to.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's like what Accelerator is going to actually teach.
Nice plug. Nice.
Well, great. That's just been ruined.
No, you're right though. Yeah, because we built out the launch pad, which was like, it was kind of giving people it was like the
fundamentals.
Yeah, well, exactly, right. So like you've got your levels of learning. It was like making people like conscious but still kind of incompetent, right? So now like the accelerator is like making them consciously competent, and then the next level is like they just do this. They just get in a state of flow. There's no anxiety. They're just there. They're present. They're listening to the prospect. Script's out the window. Doesn't matter. It's just ingrained in them, and it just happens. Like that's when sales is fun, right? Yeah.
I love like role playing with some of my girls and just like taking over and doing it, and they're just like starry eyed, and they're like, oh my god, I want to get to that.
Yeah. Well, why did you say that? It's like, well, it just made sense. Like,
yeah, they're like, how do you know to go down this way? And I'm like, because it just does. And
it's
then
just
I'm like,
IQ, sales IQ. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, how do you teach the because it just does? You know, like that's the hardest
Unfortunately,
part.
you can't.
Well, you can.
Like you can. Okay, so yeah, you can to an extent, but also like there's a sense of like you need like reps. You just do. You need self-experience to be able to understand that. Because at the end of the day, you can read and learn everything about driving a car, but like at the end of the day, you got to sit behind the wheel and do it, right?
Totally. And you actually need to see enough times people respond to the way that you say things for you to actually be like, oh, that worked.
That's a consistent thing. Yeah. It's a pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 100%. It was pretty amazing. I was giving feedback to one of my clients about how to communicate with some of her clients. And we noticed that one of her members was kind of getting a bit like snappy with her. Okay. Like she would say something with a justification or like, trying to, assert her authority. Okay. And I was like, okay, so what would be the best way to communicate with this person? Because you can't keep going like this, right? That battle for that power frame, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, think about a sales call. If this was happening, what would you do? And she was like, I need to disarm her. And I was like, exactly. So what do you get to say here? And she was like, like kind of thinking about it. And she was like, should I ask to share some feedback? And I was like, exactly. Ask her for permission to share how you've been feeling. And then just share the observation. Like, hey, I notice that every time I give you some feedback about your progress, like, you get this seems to happen. Like, I genuinely am here to help you. And I just wanted to know if anything else is coming up for you, if you prefer me to give you this feedback in a different way. And guess what she said?
What?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That's literally like, so yeah, what you just explained there, right? Like that's an actual like connection, right? It's like, it's almost like it's an emotional handshake, right? But also what you're doing is like, you're calling out, you're doing the hard thing, right? You're calling out like a BS way of thinking or whatever it is that's not serving them. So like, she did that in a way which was beneficial for the person. It wasn't self-serving. It was beneficial for her.
Yep.
And that's the responses you get, right? Like I've literally had sales calls where like the guy is just like, I don't know. It's like someone like pissed in his coffee or something in the morning. Yeah. And like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, time out for a second, man. Like, is everything all right? Like, you just, it sounds like, do you want to be here? And like immediately just like that shift and that pattern that like I've literally had like a grown ass man be like, man, I'm really sorry. Like I've actually just come off like a really shit day. Like I apologize. Yeah. And then like, boom, we're back. We're connecting.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's uncomfortable, right? Because you don't want to have that like conversation with someone.
And
But
the
like,
problem is
when
people tend to do it in a triggered way.
Yeah, because you're triggered, right?
Correct.
So like it's hard to not be like, hey man, what's going on?
Yeah,
like being really rude.
exactly.
Now you're being combative.
Yes.
Right? And then their guard's gonna come up.
Yeah.
But if you literally do it from a place of like, hey man,
Love,
like,
yeah.
are you okay? Like, we don't have to do this. Like, it's up to you. Like, I'm here to help. Then they're like, fuck. Like, what am I doing? Like, yeah. So that's and that's with everything. That's just sales. It's just life, right?
That's communication.
Yeah, exactly.
I think being so self-aware of how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And then making sure you don't come from a place of defensiveness.
Yes.
Which everyone does. You get triggered, you're starting to defend your actions like, yeah, but this. And then, obviously that's going to trigger a response back. Yeah. So you just become this like, that's not communication.
That's
right?
literally, so because I'm still going down my NLP rabbit hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the thing is like, it's 50% you first and then the 50% is them. So like you need to be in control of your state.
Yes.
Because if I can like, if you're coaching someone, they're like, oh, I said the things. I said, hey, like time out for a second. Are you okay? But like, then you listen to it and you're like, yeah, but look where it came from.
Exactly.
You were so triggered in that moment. Your tone was off. Like,
your body language.
The intent from how the prospect perceived was off. So that's why it didn't work.
Yeah.
And this is where just like scriptless, like script reading just doesn't work.
No.
Like it needs to come from a place of like
of service.
Yeah.
And understanding. I actually have encouraged my clients who are, have a client-facing business or like deal with clients a lot to send voice notes instead of messages, which again is really uncomfortable, but
game changer.
Yeah. You can hear the compassion. You can hear that it is coming from a place of love. It's non-judgmental. Like it's a really beautiful way to deliver a challenging thing.
You know what? I think voice. Okay, so because it was like calls, right? It was phone calls, then it became text, and then it became like emojis, right? And then it became like abbreviations, or whatever. But like now it is. I feel like there's a shift towards voice notes. I feel like voice notes is a better way of communication than phone calls, and the reason why is because like it is like you get to have an uninterrupted, safe spot where you get to share whatever it is that you want to say, and then you hand the mic. And they get to say it. It's like, it's the perfect form of communication. You're not talking over each other. You're not, you know what I mean? Like you
just learn to do it concisely.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But like, 5-minute voice note.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like I had a laugh with the guys at the Unemployables because when finishing the podcast, they said, "Oh, how do you want girls to reach out to you? Because there's going to be so many." And I was like,
"Send me voice notes."
I was like, "Send me," and they were like,
"What? 20-minute voice notes?
You want them to send you a voice note? Can we just clear that up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to hear their voice. Like, I want them to introduce themselves."
30-second cap. Yeah.
And they're like, "Okay, guys, you heard it. Send Brooke a 5-minute voice note." And I'm like, "Shit, not a 5-minute one."
Yeah.
Like part of being good at sales is to speak concisely, right? So like, I actually use it as a technique, as a training strategy because. It's great for my girls. If they're going to tell me something, they only can voice note me.
Yep.
And if it goes for longer than a minute, it's too long for a voice note.
It. Yeah.
Correct.
Redo it and make it more pointy.
Yeah.
That's actually really good education style there.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's really good because that's, you do need to be super pointy and concise in sales. So,
You're too fluffy. You're just giving permission to your prospect to be fluffy.
Yeah. And what that does is it actually makes you look less of an expert.
Correct.
If you look at any professional, anyone that really knows what they're doing in an industry, they speak so concisely and so like pointed.
Correct.
Because they just know exactly what they're doing.
Like it's just the 101 of sales, right? You fluff out the price. It's just showing uncertainty.
Which I literally just did that right then. I was showing you an example of it. But so I guess the next thing, because I know we're going pretty long.
Yeah, we should just end it now, I think.
No.
So I can eat my Pringles in peace.
Yeah. So I think we're about an hour with these two joined together. But I guess so my month was a bit different, right? Wasn't really what we expected. So
hey, the ups and downs of sales.
Yeah, that's it, right? It's all a learning experience. There's no such thing as a failure unless you don't learn from it. So yeah, I mean my month that I was gonna do, which was gonna be huge and massive, and it definitely didn't go as planned. So, there's external things that I can be like, there's things that are outside of my control, right? Can play victim, point blame at that.
And let's be real, like for a while you were in that mindset,
yeah,
right?
Of course, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only human. But, I did have a moment of realization where I just reflected. I was like, fuck, you know what? I didn't do what I needed to. Like, that's it. And like, I look at the data was pretty in line with where I needed it to be. The only real difference, like my show rate just tanked. Like I'm talking like, my close rate pretty consistently was like 35%, normal, right? But my show rate, like in the gutter. Like I think, so the first week I basically wasn't able to do it because I got really sick, right? And then I had to fly to Perth, pick up Oki. So like I probably put in a good like 2 weeks, let's say, right? And yeah, my show rate was like 30%, like atrocious.
Whoa.
Yeah, like 30% show rate. So, and you can only assume responsibility for things. So, something I did notice as well, night shift is not the play.
Really?
Especially in sales. It's funny, right? Because like when I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to do this, everyone's like, oh, wicked, man, like go for it. And then like just after, like now, because I'm doing like early mornings, right? So it's it's not completely different, but everyone's like, bro, yeah, I don't think nights is the play here. Because you got to think about it, like the thing with sales, and this is something that attracts me to sales so much, right? Is like to be really good at sales. I think I heard this from like one of my mentors. It was like sales is such a clear reflection of who and how you are. So like this is the best thing about sales, and this is what attracts me to it, because like I kind of got into like personal development right before sales, and then I saw like, hey, there's such a clear distinction here, and you could argue that's for everything, but it's so much more in sales because people only really want to buy from the person they want to be. Like that is it, right? Like you like you've got to be the person that you would buy from.
Yeah.
Right. If you show up to a call and you look like trash and like you just like you're slurring your words, you're red eyed, like
You're hungover.
would you buy from that person?
Yeah, no.
No, you wouldn't, right? So like you've got to be that guy. You've got to be the best version of yourself. It forces you to be the best version of yourself to really perform at a high level.
Yep, correct.
And I just wasn't that. I wasn't that guy. I was tired. I was actually miserable. Like me and David were like, it got like a few days in and we were like, oh my God, I'm actually so depressed. Like you weren't here, Oki wasn't here. Like my whole like why, my like North Star was gone. And like, yes, it was for you guys, but also at the same time it was like there's no feedback there. Right.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it was a struggle. And then like, we were going through things, growing pains company wise as well. So like, there was those external forces as well that weren't working in my favor. So it was just an accumulation of all those things. So I think I'm going to maybe give it another crack. Like with how things are heading, I think it's going to be really good with how things are heading in the business. So that could be a really good avenue to pursue maybe in like 2 or 3 months time, which I might have another crack at it. But yeah, anyway, it was a learning experience.
You know what like that's a really, really personal share. So, kudos to you for showing up and being vulnerable with that. Because I know we spoke about it earlier and you were kind of like, oh, like, you weren't really wanting to talk about it. Because it is like, like it's not a failure. It absolutely isn't because you did it. But, it didn't turn out how you planned. So it's very easy to slip into that mindset of feeling like a failure.
Yeah.
So like to share that to, whoever's listening, like that's huge.
So it's done the opposite. So it's invigorated me now. So now I'm like,
you failed forward.
Yeah. Yes. We spoke about that last podcast, I'm pretty sure.
Did,
right.
Yeah.
So it's exposed holes in my gaps in my game. And what it's also done is it's exposed like where my head is at really. So like, yeah, no, it's actually been like a really good learning experience.
Yeah.
So,
what would be interesting? I would love to see the top closer across every single account and see if there can be any characteristics.
Of course.
Correct, right? I bet you they all look after themselves.
100%.
I bet you they all like probably don't drink or drink very rarely.
Yep.
They all would have like a morning routine.
Yep.
They are all so like in tune with who they are, with their mindset. Like it's all on lock. It 100%. Has to be, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And this is a term that will always stick with me is like being an actual, so sales, being the top salesperson in any industry, any business, like you are a professional athlete of the business world. That's what it is. You don't see any top performing F1 drivers, football, like rugby, whatever, NBA, like none of the top guys are going out. Like they're not obsessed with they're obsessed with what they do. They're not going out, like they're not, not sleeping. They're not working on their mind, and like they're not consistently growing. Like, Steph Curry, whatever it is, something ridiculous. He has to hit like 100 swishes or some bullshit before he leaves.
What's swishes?
Like so he stands on the 3-point line and he throws.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he throws 3 points, but he has to hit like 100. It's something ridiculous, like 100 in a row. No, it's 100 swishes before he can leave after everyone's already done. They've done a full practice session. Like they've trained. This is his job as well. So he trains for a full thing. Everyone else leaves the gym, goes home, and he's like, "No, I am the best in the world, right?" So he stays back and he does 100 free throws. I think it is not free throws, free throws.
Free throws.
Yeah, I know. Look,
we get it. Okay,
I think I know basketball, but I don't know basketball, right? So he does one of the ones where he stands at the key, okay?
Yeah.
And he does 100. He has to hit 100, and the last 10, he has to do it without hitting the rim. And if he hits it on the 9th one, he starts from 1.
Fuck.
Yeah. So like that's it. That's what it takes. That's literally what it takes. So like you have to make sure that everything's in line. If it's not, like you're not going to be able to perform.
Like as a mini challenge for everyone, anyone in sales that is listening to this, like something that I would notice when I was selling high ticket fitness.
Yep.
If I sold in my dressing gown, I just like woke up, I kind of like crawled to the computer. I wouldn't close nearly as many people as I would if I was dressed up. I was ready to go out. I was feeling sexy. I was feeling confident.
Yep.
I would just, it would come to me with ease.
Yeah.
I'd really have to fight for it if it's in my dressing gown and I'm all slouched over and I'm tired.
Yeah. And
so like,
that's
challenge.
actually really interesting because, you were doing that over the phone.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It still comes across.
Totally. Oh my God. Of course. Who wants to speak louder than the words you say, right?
Yeah. Because I sell on Zoom, so it's much more apparent, but like it is even so much more apparent on the phone.
How can you possibly speak with confidence and conviction when you got a dressing gown on, you're hunched over in your chair, you're tired, like it's cold, like you literally, there's no way
you're gonna
you
lead
can.
someone to like make a life
exactly.
Yeah, it's just
but like you're going out for dinner, you're all dressed up, like you've got makeup on, you've done your hair, you're feeling good, like you're owning that freaking conversation because they want to buy from you, that version of you, not the one that you're trying to tell them not to do. You should be going to the gym in the first thing in the morning. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not congruent.
Yep.
Anyway, people are probably bored of us.
Yeah, we went a little bit long. I actually hope that I can figure out how to merge these two together, but maybe we just do like a part 1, part 2 or something. We'd put up 2 podcasts.
Actually, it leaves on a bit of a hook as well. My blood was boiling. Actually, that's cool.
That could be good.
That's really cool.
So, but then we just release it tomorrow or something, so they don't have to wait like another week. Anyway,
we're booting that urgency.
How good! I'm stoked to be back. Stoked to be doing this again. We're gonna keep it consistent weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Any parting words?
No.
Wicked. All right. Peace, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.